Welcome, everybody, to the NFL Show on the Girly 2 Sports Network. I'm your host for the NFL Show, Mike Goodpaster. And right now, I would like to welcome to the show, as always, my co-host from the FF Face-Off, one of the foremost fantasy experts in the entire world, Anthony Cervino. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing awesome, Mike. How are you?
All right, and the guy that's going to be our guest picker today, of course, you've heard him on the NFL Weekly Pick'em show where he is 30 games behind first place. But he's also, he probably thought I was introducing him when I said a fantasy expert because he fancies himself a fantasy expert, Anthony. Help me welcome to the show, Scott Wilson. How you doing, Scott?
Mike. I'm doing good. Hello, Anthony.
Hey, how's it going, Scott?
Well, I wouldn't say expert in fantasy, but I just finished in second place.
There you go.
So, yeah.
Well, Anthony
in the league?
I'm excited.
Yeah, in a league.
Yeah, it's like a daily fantasy. I've won the last 2 years. And I should have won this year, but I made a stupid pick. I picked John the last game, which that's dumb.
Yeah. Well, Scott will sometimes do dumb things. But, Anthony, the great thing is Jason Garrett is no longer the head coach of your Dallas Cowboys.
Is it official?
They said it was.
Because all the media outlets are reporting it as official, but I didn't see the Cowboys make an announcement. I know Ed Werder, the longtime Cowboys reporter, last night said that they will be parting ways. And then ESPN basically was the one who reported it. It felt like they twisted his words, said he was completely gone. Fox Sports is reporting it. But I still haven't seen anything from the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, and
I just saw that this morning, too, that there's nothing. They were saying the same thing, that they have not made a decision yet.
well, I think it would be awesome if he's still retained.
Well, not me.
Oh, you need to quit being such a sissy, though. It makes the show better when Jason Garrett's the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
Really, I think it's inevitable that he's going to be gone. I still think that they might wait until the contract expires. But they also need to make the right hire. Because you can get rid of Garrett, but if you don't bring in the right guy, you're going to be in the same, if not a worse situation. Because at least Garrett was getting you to 4 500 seasons, 3 division championships, a couple of playoff wins. But, if you make a poor move, you could regress.
Yeah, and this is the same thing I was saying to all the Cincinnati Bengal fans like Scott that wanted Marvin Lewis gone. And look what we got.
Yeah.
I do want Marvin. I'm glad he's gone. I know he's I think he wasn't he up for the job in Cleveland, they're saying? I think you're up for the job in Cleveland, Mike.
I should be. I wouldn't take it. I've already accepted a job, so. See?
What is the more coveted job? Is it Cleveland or is it Dallas?
Dallas.
I don't know that either one's coveted. How about this? It's Dallas if Jerry Jones is going to give you some control. And how about this? Scott is a big Buckeyes fan. Do you think Urban Meyer could go turn around the Dallas Cowboys?
That's a real. I think as much as I like Urban Meyer, I don't think that'd be a good idea. I don't think he has the personality for it. I think he's too controlling. NFL players are a different breed. I think Meyer's one of the greatest coaches of all time, but I just think he's a college coach. I don't think his personality would work well in the NFL.
Well, Bill Belichick's controlling.
Yeah, but I don't know, Belichick's more of a hands-off, kind of like not in your face, but I think Meyer's intensity, it's great for college, and I think he took Ohio State to some great, beyond anything that they've ever seen. But I just don't think Urban Meyer's the kind of guy. I'm not sure he even wants it. I think they're just throwing that name around, but I think Meyer already said he's not interested, plus his health. I mean, he goes full in.
His health.
I'm just.
He uses his health to
mean,
get out of situations that he
his daughter made him.
into.
I'm not arguing that, but his daughter's made him sign a family contract, and I can't see how the NFL is going to be easier.
His daughter made him sign a family contract. Is that binding in a court of law, Scott?
I don't think so, but I think it was binding in as far as his happiness at home.
Nah, until they say we'll give you $15 million a year, and then they're going to tear that contract up. I would think this. The one good thing, if it would be a guy like Urban Meyer, Anthony, would be the fact that Jerry would have obviously ceded control of the team to him.
You would at least hope, unless it's going to be another Jimmy Johnson type of struggle where you have that brief period of success, albeit they won Super Bowls, but it came to an end, and I think they left championships on the table with Jimmy Johnson leaving.
Yeah, and I think that he chased Bill Parcells away, too.
Oh, absolutely.
So, all right, let's go ahead and let's look at this weekend's playoff games, and we're going to start off 4:35 tomorrow afternoon. The Buffalo Bills will take on the Houston Texans. Any updates on Will Fuller, Anthony?
Yeah, they're calling Will Fuller a true game-time decision, and the last thing that I saw last night during my show was they're not very optimistic about him playing.
Yeah, and I think without Will Fuller, I think the Buffalo Bills have a really good shot here because, Scott, I would think the way Houston would go about attacking is to throw the ball deep down the field against the Bills, because if they try to line up and just go man for man and pound on each other, I think the Bills win that game. And I think no Will Fuller here is a killer.
No, I think you're right, Mike. I've seen a couple. There were media outlets were talking about the Texans. I just don't think the Texans are going to – I think Deshaun Watson, they're going to hold him under probably 150 yards passing. I think he's going to have a rough day. And I think in 15 games, I think he's only been held under 200 yards a total 4 times. But I think he's going to struggle this week because, like you said, no Will Fuller. He's going to begin – this is one of the best pass defenses that he's seen all season. I think the Bills they've given up the second fewest touchdown passes of any team. They've also given up – I think that they're in the top 5 in fewest yards. I just think the Bills, the thing that they're going to need to do and continue is just to get their running game going. So I think the Texans are going to put their game plan is going to feature their run, but I don't see it happen. I think Josh Allen's going to have a huge day. I think he's better than I thought he was going to be. He's not Lamar Jackson. I think he's pretty athletic. I think he'll be able to run the ball a little bit too. So
why would you say he's not Lamar Jackson? Because don't you think it's a little unfair to compare him to Lamar Jackson? Because Lamar Jackson, I think, has more weapons. I mean, guys that can go deep down the field and catch the ball.
That's true. I think Josh. I'm talking as a runner.
I think Josh Allen's pretty damn good as a runner too.
Well, they're different styles. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I think Allen is athletic. I think they're going to. If the Bills are smart, I think they make him. It's kind of like what the Trevor Lawrence did against Ohio State. Just run him. If he's open, run him, because that's going to make them have to bring up another defender, and it's going to put them in bad situation in the passing game. And I just think the Texans' defense is shoddy, so I'm going with the Bills on this.
Yeah, and the thing that's scary, Anthony, when you look at the stats, the 10 games with Fuller, as opposed to the 5 games without, deep pass attempts with Fuller, they rank 3rd in the league. Without him, they rank 20th. Deep passing yards, they're number 1 when he's in, 18 when they're out. Deep passing touchdowns, they're 1st, 20th when he's out. And adjusted completion percentage goes from 2nd in the league to 32nd in the league. And I think if you're going to win without Fuller, you got to be able to run the ball, and I don't think that they have the horses to be able to do that in Houston in this game.
Well, yeah, to add a little bit more of the stats with and without Fuller. With Fuller on the field, they're averaging 296.8 passing yards per game. Without him, 158.3. And they're almost scoring a full touchdown less per game this season without Will Fuller. So that's safe to say that if he doesn't play, it's going to be significant. And even if he does play, I think the Bills are smart enough to know this guy isn't going to be 100%. So Carlos Hyde is going to have to be that bell cow type back. He's going to have to get volume, and he's going to have to get positive yardage against his Bills front seven. Otherwise, the Bills are going to pin their ears back and pressure Deshaun Watson. And while the Texans' offensive line is better with Tunsil, you can still get to him, especially if you're blitzing.
All right, so when we look at this game, the other key thing to me is here coaching, and I think the Buffalo Bills have that in spades. I think Bill O'Brien's a good coach, but I think McDermott's a really good coach. I think he's one of the top 3 or 4 coaches in the NFL. So when you're picking this game, Scott, who do you like and what kind of score you got?
That's a good question. So I think it's going to be close. I don't trust the Bills' offense to throw. I don't even think Allen. He hadn't even thrown for 300 yards in his career. I think he's going to fall short again. I think I'm going to take the Bills like 17-14.
All right, Anthony.
Yeah, I like Buffalo here. I think there can be some points in this game, but not much more. More like a 24-21 game, because I think Josh Allen he doesn't have great weapons. But if you look at what Cole Beasley has done tearing up the middle of the field, and if you can get Beasley going a little bit, you're going to get John Brown open over the top.
Yeah, I'm going to go the Buffalo Bills win this game by double digits. I think they're going to wear them out. I think Devin Singletary, Frank Gore, they're going to have big games. Josh Allen's going to run around a little bit. I know J.J. Watt's playing, but how successful can he be? How long has it been since he's played? He can't be in game shape. And I like Buffalo to win this game, something like 27-13. And I think the Buffalo Bills are a threat the next week if they're going into Baltimore, because I think they're a team that matches up pretty well with Baltimore, and we already saw them. A controversial call kept that game from going to overtime, Anthony, in Buffalo a few weeks ago.
Wait, so you're saying you could see this game going in overtime?
No, I'm saying I can see the Bills going to Baltimore and winning.
Oh, okay, assuming that they win. Yeah, I think the Bills can make a run. I just don't know if they can go into Baltimore and win.
All right, Scott, what's your take on the Bills moving forward if they do get the win in this game?
Well, if they win this game, they've still got. Who'd you say they would have the?
Well, they're either going to go to Buffalo or Kansas City, depending on what happens in the other game.
That's enough. Those are really, really tough places to play. Kansas City, it is almost impossible to win in December.
Well, come on, don't give me that. How could it be almost impossible to win? The Kansas City Chiefs haven't won a playoff game at home.
Have you been out to Kansas City? Have you been out there? I'm saying their home field advantage is tremendous.
No, it's not.
I'm not saying they're a better team.
That's total BS.
Have you been out there?
Why would I have
City?
to go out there to sit here and watch them lose 3 times at home this year?
Well, I haven't been to Kansas City. So it's different in December.
It's not.
What I've.
How's it different?
Wait a second. Out in the middle of nowhere. Their stadium's out in the middle of nowhere.
I don't care
like
if their stadium is in the middle of nowhere or not. If they were so tough to beat at home in the playoffs, they'd have been to a Super Bowl, and they haven't since 1970. I've watched them lose numerous home playoff games, including last year.
Well,
I watched Peyton Manning go in and beat them there. I watched John Elway go in and beat them there. So this home field thing is a bunch of crap. The best team will usually win the playoff game. Now, normally the best team has home field advantage because they have the better record. Has nothing to do with home field advantage.
Well, the weather's shouldn't be a factor because Buffalo's used to playing in cold environments. So I think if they go to Kansas City, I just don't see it happen. I think Buffalo's going to be one and done.
So
I think they're kind of
answer me this: when Buffalo played Kansas City earlier this year, what happened?
You tell me.
No, you tell me. You said you were prepared for this show, Scott.
Here we go. You're going to call. Let me Google this answer first, Mike, since we're going to do that.
All right, Anthony, you want to go ahead and answer?
What's that?
I said, what happened when Buffalo played Kansas City earlier this year?
They won.
Where was the game played?
At Kansas City.
It's different in December and January. It's not the same.
Oh, okay. So the
telling you.
fans
But
don't
was
cheer as
that a
hard
game?
over there?
Was that a game Mahomes was in or out? And that is something I don't remember.
I don't know. I don't even remember the Bills playing the Chiefs this year, to tell you the truth. I was just asking to see if they did. I didn't want that to be
No, they
one that
didn't.
Googled it.
They didn't. The last time they played, now that I look at it, was 2017.
Okay. But when we look at the Chiefs, they've lost more games at home than they have on the road. They've been a better away team than they have a home team this year, Scott.
I understand that. That place, it's a playoff atmosphere. The stadium itself is electric. It's gonna. I just don't. It's just hard to go into that stadium and pull out a victory in that kind of environment. Plus, again, this is not a team that's been a playoff regular with Josh Allen, and I think there's a learning curve here. I really do.
Well, this
And
is a team in the Bills that were in the playoffs just 2 years ago.
I know that. I know they were. I don't know. I'm not sure they're ready to take the hump.
Well, they lost to the Packers. They lost to the Texans, both at home.
I know.
So
I think it's safe to say the Bills are a team that may have overachieved a little bit, and I think it's a step in the right direction if they make it out of the first round of the playoffs. But to say they're going to go into Kansas City or in Baltimore, I think it's a tough.
I didn't say that they would win.
To beat any one of those teams.
I can tell you this,
but
though.
I wouldn't discredit them if they lost.
What I'm saying
I
is
think
this.
the Bills are headed in the right direction.
I think they're a year or two away from being a
Right.
Super Bowl contender, and they need
Right.
a couple more weapons. But I think the way they play with the defense and the running the ball and the quarterback that can run is conducive to going on the road and pulling a big upset.
No question, Mike. I think that could definitely happen. I don't know. I think the weather,
The situation is going to be an X factor in this.
Well, the weather.
What is the weather out there this week? It's supposed to. I think
In Houston, they have a
some kind of
dome.
cold. No, I'm talking Kansas City.
Oh, I don't know. Kansas City didn't play this week. We'll look at that next week.
That.
All right, next up, a place where weather will be a factor. Hurricane Henry is about to hit New England, and we're not talking about Derrick Henry. It could be snow, but there's 83% chance of rain during this game. And now this is a game where everybody jumps on this and says the Titans are going to win. They got Derrick Henry. The Patriots don't look that good. Julian Edelman's banged up. But if the weather's as bad as they say, does that change your opinion at all, Anthony?
In theory, you would say you give the advantage to the New England Patriots because of Brady and Belichick, and they're used to the weather. But if you look at the Tennessee Titans and what they do best, they run the ball with Derrick Henry, they establish him, and they let Ryan Tannehill pick you apart a little bit. And the X factor in this game, whoever runs the ball better is going to win this game. I don't think the Tennessee Titans defense is as good as New England, but I think they can hold their own, especially against a Patriots offense that has been extremely Jekyll and Hyde, and probably a hell of a lot more Hyde than Jekyll this season.
Yeah, and I think one of the huge keys here, Scott, is going to be Tennessee's red zone offense against New England's red zone defense. Because I think if Tennessee, they're going to move the ball, I think, on the New England defense. Can they get it in the end zone? Because we saw, if you go college-wise, you look at Ohio State, they lost to Clemson because they were held to 3 field goals early in that game when they got in the red zone. So Tennessee's got to be able to put the ball in the end zone when they get down there, and I think that's going to be a big part of deciding this game.
No question about that. Relating to you can't trade field goals. And I did see Tannehill has not won a game. He's 0-6 in Foxborough, and I think that Brady looked like he was a man on a mission last week or this week, and the players in the locker room, I'm hearing that they're seeing a different Brady. Brady was recently criticized. Some defensive coordinator, former one, said he's not the same anymore, and he's obviously 42 or whatever. But there's a lot of problems that the Titans, to your point, they they present a lot of problems to the Patriots. Tannehill is playing well, even though he doesn't play well in Foxborough. They got a great receiver in Derrick Henry. They got a good receiver in A.J. Brown. I think this is a game where Belichick is going to outcoach Vrabel. And I think Mike Vrabel is a tremendous coach. But again, back to what you were saying, this is a game that it's an intriguing matchup because it's hard to tell who's going to win. Gillette's going to have a lot of motion. Everything is statistically is pointing in the direction, I think, of New England. But Tennessee, if they can get points early and they can keep this game close, it's one of those things I don't think anybody thinks Tennessee just on paper should win.
I do. I think when you look at it, I think Tennessee on paper is the better team.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, New England's 6-2 at home. I mean, it's a tough. You're going into Foxborough. That's a really, really tall order, especially with this weather.
Miami just beat them.
I don't see it. They've historically struggled against Miami almost every year. I just don't see it happen. I think New England wins, and I think they're going to win. They're going to cover the spread.
My other concern here, Anthony, is the health of the defense, because I think Miami's defense, they went through the first 2/3 of the season pretty much healthy, and they were one of the best defenses. But now you've got cornerbacks Jonathan Jones, Jason McCourty, linebacker Jamie Collins, shoulder issue. Quarterback Stephon Gilmore, who was a Defense Player of the Year candidate, was absolutely shredded by Devontae Parker last week. So my question is how well this defense will play here. And this is a game where I look at it, and it's not really trying to figure out who has the advantage player-wise, because I think that's Tennessee. The thing here is you're still talking about the New England Patriots.
Yeah, and that's why, and I'm going to pick the Titans. I picked the Titans. I think the Titans are going to win and they're going to cover. But, it also feels like I'm doing it against my better judgment because it is the whole Brady and Belichick at home factor. But if you look at Tannehill's career, yes, he has never won a game in Foxborough, but he's beaten the Patriots 4 times. The last time these two teams played each other, November 11th, 2018, albeit it was in Tennessee, Derrick Henry scored twice. Tennessee won 34-10. And I think there's a lot of factors when you're looking at, a Dion Lewis, when you're looking at Vrabel. I think there's a couple of defensive pieces too. You put these guys, they played for Bill Belichick, and
yeah, but
they
the Titans
know some of his tendencies.
The Titans lost at home though to Houston.
And Ryan Tannehill has played in Foxborough.
Wait a second,
with a very different.
Scott just made the comment that they lost at home to Houston, who's a playoff team. Now, wait a second, Scott.
14-0.
Wait a second, Scott. Hold on. Let me finish. No. Yeah. You went there. Because last week I watched New England at home lose to Miami. It's just one game. It doesn't mean anything.
That plays into my point. I think Miami, that was a painful loss for New England, but you could say the Titans lost at home to Houston. They blew, I think it was a 14 lead to New Orleans in Week 16.
There was no Derrick Henry in that game.
Yeah, Derrick Henry didn't play in that game, and they still played.
You're right.
Still played the Saints tough.
So we went to the Alabama coaching clinic. I stood probably 10 feet from Derrick Henry. He is massive. I've never seen a running back. So he looks like a freaking oversized linebacker.
You know what? I talked to Derrick Henry about a month ago, and he told me about that trip, and he said there was this little skinny guy who looked kind of like a woman that was from Taylor High School. He was a coach. And I said, oh, that's probably Scott.
Yeah, I'm sure that's how that conversation went. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I think he called you effeminate looking.
I'm sure he did, Mike. Yes.
I thought it was.
I've seen. Yeah.
All right. So, Scott, you are picking New England by 2 touchdowns?
Yes.
And
no, I'm not 2 touchdowns. I just think New England's going to win and cover the spread.
All right. And Anthony likes the Titans. I am against my better judgment, just like Anthony. I'm going with the Titans. I think they're the better team. I think the Titans have scored a touchdown on 3 out of every 4 of the red zone chances this year, which is by far the highest rate in the NFL. The Patriots are one of 5 teams that allow less than a touchdown on half of their opponents' red zone trips. I think that's the difference in the game. The weather scares me, but the thing that scares me about the weather here is this might be the first time where the weather would play into, the hands of the team that's got Derrick Henry. So I know that Tom Brady is the greatest bad weather quarterback we've ever seen, but I think this is a game where even when the Patriots defense was playing at an alarmingly great rate earlier in the season, they still had a hard time stopping the run between the tackles. I think the Titans come out and the Titans win this game 24-17, 24-20, something like that. And I think the Titans are a serious Super Bowl contender.
Before we move off of this game, the Patriots are 2-4 in the past 2 seasons against Belichick disciples. And I think something that's completely flying under the radar is the fact that there is no Adam Vinatieri or Steven Gostkowski as the kicker. And if this is going to be a close game, maybe, they don't trust Nick Folk's leg. And maybe they leave points on the table because they don't think he can make the kick.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Sunday's game. The Minnesota Vikings at the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are favored by 8 points. Key injury here is Dalvin Cook. Is Dalvin Cook, it looks like he's going to play, right, Anthony?
Yeah, Dalvin Cook's going to be out there.
Yeah. What about Alexander Madison?
I think Madison's expected to play too.
All right.
Yeah.
So,
now that I'm looking at, I don't see them. I don't see any major injury designation with these guys.
Yeah, they're both practicing in full today.
All right. So, what's your take on this game, Scott? What do you think the big keys are?
Well, I think here's the key. New Orleans is playing. They're 6-2 at home. They're 7-1 on the road. I think New Orleans is just a really, really. Their offense is prolific to watch. They've given up 341 points. They've scored about 450. I just don't see as much as I really like Mike Zimmer. I think he's a good coach. I think he's done really well, and I think the Saints are the better team. What would you say the spread was, Mike?
What is the spread? I think it was 8 points.
I think. I'm actually going to take Minnesota because I think that spread is too much.
We're not
I think
picking with the spread here. You can just pick who you think's going to win the game.
I'm sorry. I apologize for that. My fault. I'm going with the Saints. I think it's going to be a good game because I think the Minnesota all year they lost by incredible stat. They've lost by more than 7 on the road just once the entire year. I think Mike Zimmer, any Bengal fan knew all along Zimmer was going to be a really good coach. I think and while the Saints have looked dominant lately, their defense has looked mediocre. I think it's going to be a pretty close game, but I'm going with New Orleans on this.
All right. My big thing here is this. The New Orleans Saints, I think, have struggled against opposing number 1 receivers all year. And, the Vikings have got one of those. The Vikings can run the ball. To me, this game, it's not a toss-up because you still got Drew Brees on the other side. You're playing in New Orleans, Anthony. But I think this is an intriguing matchup also.
I do think it's an intriguing matchup. And the way the Minnesota Vikings, the only way they have a chance to win is going to be on the back of Dalvin Cook. And Dalvin Cook's going to have 120, 130 yards rushing plus another 30 or 40 as a receiver. And they need to get him going because what Kirk Cousins does best, obviously isn't playing in prime time. This game isn't in prime time, so there's no excuses. But what he does
it's a playoff game. It's prime time.
Is the play action pass. And so he can pick apart this defense. And what also works in Minnesota's favor is the fact that Sheldon Rankins, the Saints' best run stuffer, he's on the injured reserve list, and so is Marcus Davenport.
So, have you talked yourself into taking the Vikings?
Absolutely not. Not with the way Drew Brees is playing. Not the way Kamara has been playing in the past 2 games, looking like himself again. Michael Thomas and Stephon Gilmore were both unanimous NFL All-Pros. I think it's no longer just Kamara and Michael Thomas. Traquan Smith has scored something like 4 times in his past 6 games. Jared Cook's one of the hottest tight ends in the NFL. I think the Saints win this game by 10 points.
I think the biggest issue here is Eric Kendricks. It looks like he may attempt to play, but the problem with that is he's not going to be 100%. And the plays that the Saints thrive on are slants, option routes to Thomas and tight end Jared Cook, dump-offs to running back Alvin Kamara in space, and basically short, intermediate range plays, where the Vikings desperately need Kendricks, who I think is one of the best cover linebackers in the NFL. Without him, the Vikings are going to kind of have to pick their poison. And I think that by the time this is done, Drew Brees will likely make that hurt big time. I think the Saints win this game. I think the Vikings can keep it close, but I would say something like Saints 30, Vikings 20, 23, somewhere around there. Next up, the Seattle Seahawks at 11-5 will travel to Philadelphia to take on the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 9-7, who destroyed the Dallas Cowboys to win the division towards the end of the season. And you got to make fun of the Dallas Cowboys as much as you can, Scott, because Anthony's a huge Cowboys fan. But give me a little injury update on this game, because I think the injuries, especially the running backs for Seattle, what you got going on there, the injuries with the Eagles, with Miles Sanders, all these guys, Zach Ertz, is going to have a lot to do with who wins this game.
Well, I saw J.J. Watt is back in practice in pads. I think
J.J. Watt does not play in this game.
Oh no, I'm thinking something.
All right, Anthony, go ahead. Scott just dropped the ball. He had a chance to be big time, and he fumbled.
I know.
Like Opie Taylor.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Anthony.
Well, it looks like the banged-up Eagles seem to be trending in the right direction. I think Ertz is the biggest question mark because he's dealing with the ribs. But Miles Sanders, he didn't practice yesterday, but I think they're taking more of a cautious approach with his ankle. I think a lot of these Eagles are going to play, with the exception of Ertz, who could come down to, maybe he takes a shot in his ribs pregame and see if he can go. But you would think with the magnitude of this game, Zach Ertz is going to be out there.
Yeah, he's just got a lacerated kidney.
Well, that's a big deal. If he doesn't play, that's a huge loss for Philly.
Yeah, and I think it looks like, from what I've read, Anthony, that Miles Sanders will be back, Fletcher Cox, Derek Barnett, which is huge on the D-line. I think Seattle's going to have a hard time running the ball. I think this game's going to come down to whichever quarterback can get it done, Anthony.
It is, and I'm seeing another report from Bleeding Green Nation, which is, I believe it's FanSided's Eagles page, that a former NFL team doctor believes Zach Ertz is unlikely to play against Seattle. But even if you look at the Seahawks, they're not exactly the healthiest team either, because they lost both of their running backs at the end of the year, both on injured reserve. So you're now dealing with Travis Homer, I believe is a rookie, and Marshawn Lynch. Averaged 2.8 yards per carry. He did score last week for what it's worth. Their wide receiver core, when you look at Josh Gordon, was suspended indefinitely at the end of the year. I think Jerron Brown is dealing with an injury. They have another receiver, I believe, who could still be in the concussion protocol. So you might be down with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Both of these teams are dealing with significant injuries on offense, so it is going to come down to the quarterback position. But if you look at the Seahawks, they almost remind me of the Texans, to where they always seem to be playing on Wildcard weekend, and they're one and done.
Yeah,
because
and they're there just because they got a really good quarterback.
You're going to Philadelphia, and you can make the case nobody – you have Drew Brees, you have Lamar Jackson, you have Tannehill, and I think it's Carson Wentz is that other quarterback in that conversation who's been playing their best football in the past 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah,
they have an emerging running back in Boston Scott, who is like the next Darren Sproles on this team. Jordan Howard's back and healthy, who's going to convert those short yards. And Miles Sanders can do a little bit of everything. Dallas Goedert, if you ask me, he's been emerging as Philly's better tight end. And this is not taking anything away from Zach Ertz, but, Dallas Goedert is a second-round pedigree in his own right. So they have weapons that they can win with. If they were playing New Orleans, maybe I have a different tune. But I like the Eagles at home to beat the Seattle Seahawks. And if you want to look ahead to round 2, if the Eagles win, then you get Deshaun Jackson back. And it's a whole new ballgame. If they win this game, and I've said it for the past 2 weeks, you can make the case for Philly to make a run to the Super Bowl. But they need to win this game and get Jackson back for the divisional round.
All right, Scott, do you agree with an Eagles win here, or do you like the Seahawks?
I do agree with the Eagles win. I think Anthony's exactly right. They played earlier this year, and the last time the Eagles turned the ball over 5 times, and they still only lost by 8 points. So I think their coach, he's a really, really good coach. I think the Eagles have done a better job since protecting the football. The past 5 games, like you were saying, Mike, they've won 4 straight, including that freaking butt whooping against that awful Dallas team. There you go, Anthony. I think the Eagles. You're winning 4 straight. They got a lot of confidence. Now the 2 of them were against with the Giants, who won 4 games, and the Redskins, who won 3. But you're winning. Seattle's lost 3 of their last 4, and the big thing, the factor is they got to travel all the way across the country, and I think that's just I don't know. I think that's a big difference when you've got to take that kind of time. Now, on the flip side, I think Schwartz's defense, they haven't given up defensively more than 17 points at home in the last 6 games. So if they can keep that streak up, like if they keep it under 17, I think the Eagles are going to win. But I think if Seattle's able to get in the 20s, I think Seattle wins.
All right. I pretty much agree with you guys. I think the big thing here is Russell Wilson struggles when the weather's not great. And it's supposed to be 42 and sunny on Sunday, but you're supposed to have 15 to 20 mile per hour winds. I think Wilson will struggle. I think the big thing people are missing is you get a couple of those pieces back on that defensive line for the Eagles. And the last time the Eagles played against Russell Wilson in that 17-9 loss, they sacked him 6 times. I don't think Seattle's offensive line is going to hold up here. I think Carson Wentz will do just enough, and I think the Eagles win this game 20-17. So we all agree there too.
Sounds good. So we agree. Yes.
Yep. That means all Eagle fans are upset right now.
They'll be thanking me later.
All right. So right now, if you had to pick a Super Bowl, Scott, who would it be?
Oh God. Well, the sexy pick was Baltimore.
I don't know. I'm going to go with New England again. I think it's going to be New England and Philadelphia. I think there's such a does New England have home field advantage?
No, they're playing in Wildcard weekend, Scott. I thut you were prepared for this show.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've got to take my kid to the doctor in about 20 minutes. It's been a long morning. No, I think as good as Baltimore is, I think New England. It's like if this were a year from now, I'd take Baltimore. I just think New England. Belichick's going to come up with something because they're not going to get, even though the game they're going to Baltimore, the road goes through New England. So I'm picking New England.
Well, and I'll tell you this:
a year from now, I don't know.
A year from now, we're going to be talking about the Cincinnati Bengals going to the Super Bowl.
Yes.
All right, Anthony. Who would you like right now?
Right now, if I have to call it, I like New Orleans, and I like, I like New Orleans and Kansas City.
I agree with you. And I think New Orleans wins it all.
You think New Orleans is going to win?
Yeah, I think New Orleans wins it all. I think they play Kansas City. But I would not be shocked if the Tennessee Titans make a run at this. I'm telling you. If they can get the win in New England.
That's a big running back to try to stop. That just wears teams out.
Yeah, and they can play a little defense. I think they're well coached. I think this. I think there's a case to be made for all 12 teams in the playoffs that they do something that if they get hot, they could win and go to the Super Bowl. I don't think that is normally the case coming into the NFL playoffs, Anthony. I think usually you've got, like Buffalo 2 years ago, you got teams that aren't capable of doing enough to be able to make a run at the Super Bowl.
No, I think you can make a case for most. I'm a little bit more worried about Seattle, and I understand the Russell Wilson factor, but unless Marshawn Lynch can really go back in time and pull something out, I think they're going to have a hard time.
Well, how about this? If I had to rank these teams with the best chance to go to the Super Bowl, Seattle would probably be my number 12 with the least amount of chance to go there. And the Green Bay Packers would be number 11.
Why would you put Seattle 12?
Because I think that they're the worst team here. I don't think Pete Carroll's a very good coach. I think they get by because they got Russell Wilson. The Green Bay Packers, they've got one of those 12-year-old PlayStation coaches. Aaron Rodgers doesn't look the same. They can run the ball, but I think their defense is eminently beatable. And I think we saw that when they went to San Francisco about a month ago. I don't think that Green Bay is capable of beating San Francisco. I think Minnesota would be more capable of beating San Francisco than Green Bay is. And I also think that, with New Orleans, Minnesota, I think, matches up better and has a better chance to beat in New Orleans than Green Bay would. I just think that Green Bay and Seattle are overrated. I think that neither team is that good, and I think it will be proven out over the next 2 weeks.
Well, so real quick, who's your pick for Clemson LSU game?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay, I was just curious.
You could hear me and Randy Cross discuss that in a week. So,
okay.
But
well,
I haven't made my mind up yet.
Investment.
Okay. Well, I'll let you know. But if you would have listened to me on the Clemson Ohio State game, you'd have made some money.
Yeah, I probably would have.
And you'd have made a lot of money last year when Clemson played Bama in a championship game.
Yeah, I probably. Yeah. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, you never want to listen to me.
Still sitting.
All right. Scott, anything you want to say before we wrap it up, other than just being awestruck to be in the presence of me and Anthony?
Oh, it's you two. I feel like I'm Moses on Mount Sinai. I am glowing right now. You have no idea. I think, in all seriousness, people should enjoy watching Tom Brady, no matter what happens, because most adults have not seen another quarterback of that caliber and what he's done in their lifetime. It's going to be a treat to watch him, even no matter what happens. So enjoy the ride.
All right, Anthony?
What's the question?
Any final words? Anything else you want to talk about before we go?
No, not really. I think we just about covered everything.
All right, guys. Anthony, tell everybody where they can find you for the FF Face-Off and all their fantasy football needs.
You can follow me on Twitter at The Real NFL Guru. You can follow my show at the FF Face-Off. We can be found at all the top social media and podcasting platforms.
All right, guys. I want to remind you all that later today at 3 o'clock, myself and Ken Sterling will be on with the Indiana Basketball Weekly Show. At 4 o'clock, myself and Andy Mac Williams will be on with a little Xavier basketball talk. And me and Anthony will be back Monday at noon to recap the weekend's playoff games. You can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, YouTube. Wherever you find podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So, for Scott Wilson, Anthony Cervino, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.